Welcome back to Gamespot Live. You're tuned in to the video review for Uru Ages Beyond Myst, the latest game in the Myst adventure series. Uru has kind of a strange name, but it's kind of a strange game. It was supposed to ship with both an offline and an online multiplayer component. In fact, it was to be the first massively multiplayer online adventure game, but at this point in time, that's just not the case. If you buy the game now, you get the offline single-player game and the ability to sign up to be on the waiting list to test the online component. The full-fledged online version of Uru, called Uru Live, will launch at an unspecified time in the future. Fortunately, the single-player game that you do get in the box is pretty worthwhile. Uru is a surprisingly unconventional adventure game, in that it's the first game in the series that lets you see your character from a third-person view. This is presumably for the online component. It lets you create a character with a different appearance, different gender, different clothes. Obviously, you want a character that looks different and can stand out in a crowd for the online game when you're trying to meet up with other people. But in the single-player game, it doesn't really serve much purpose. Also, the single-player game has no real interface to speak of. Basically, on the screen, all you'll see is your character and your surroundings, and if you go into first-person view, you won't see your character. There are a few icons at the bottom of the screen that you can pull up, but for the most part, they really don't appear in the game. Uru is also unusual in that it has no real inventory, and as a result, it has no inventory-based puzzles. All of Uru's puzzles are generally logic puzzles, although there are a few jumping puzzles as well. Basically, your task is to explore 4 different realms known as ages by traveling between them with magical tomes. Your general goal is to assemble the 7 pieces of a magical symbol. You'll find these pieces in different parts of the ages, either hidden around corners or hidden by obstacles that you either have to move or move to. Uru's puzzles are generally pretty challenging. They start off simple, but they ramp up in difficulty as you proceed. Surprisingly, Uru has a full-fledged physics system that lets you push and move objects, and you actually need to do this to solve certain puzzles. These puzzles are somewhat frustrating because you'll often have to basically coax items across the floor or through water, and thanks to the game's control scheme, which resembles that of a first-person shooter, this is kind of awkward, and it can be frustrating, especially later on in the game. You'll probably wish that you could just reach down, pick up the item, put it in your inventory, and then place it where you need to put it. Uru's puzzles are also presented in traditional Myst fashion, that is, with little or no setup or explanation. Basically, like in the other Myst games, you're a lone adventurer who has to explore the ruins of an ancient civilization. These ruins are completely deserted, so for the most part you won't be talking to any characters or receiving any helpful hints. The game's story and its background are uncovered only through journals and other writings that you'll find from time to time. But basically the setup is pretty bare. You'll walk into a room, see a logic puzzle, and be expected to figure that out. Of course, if you're a fan of the Myst series, you're familiar with this setup. Whether or not you're a fan of the series, you'll probably be impressed by Uru's production values. You could nitpick, you could say that there are certain minor graphical issues with Uru. Some of the water effects seem a bit off. Some of the polygonal objects seem to have a low polygon count. But really that's all nitpicking because Uru looks uniformly great. The different ages in Uru consist of really colorful, really imaginative environments that are brought to life with really clean, crisp textures and really nice looking lighting effects. Uru also sounds fantastic. Even though the game is mostly empty and you explore areas that are supposed to be silent, the game has lots of appropriate ambient sound. For instance, when you explore a forest area, you'll hear lots of ambient wildlife noises, which complements the setting perfectly. The sound and the graphics together help create environments that are really immersive and really make you feel as though you're actually exploring a place rather than just looking at a pretty picture. The single-player game of Uru is relatively short. If you're not experienced with adventure games, you may have trouble with some of the late-game puzzles, but it'll probably take you between 10 and 15 hours to solve the game. If you're an experienced adventure game fan, you may be able to do it in less than 10. Once you're done with those, you're done. Until Uru's online component launches, that's basically all you'll get for your $50 at this point. For the most part, Uru is a very good single-player adventure game with very impressive production values, but perhaps if it had shipped with the online multiplayer that was planned for it, it could have been much more.